Alrighty, locked and loaded. Let's get into it. So, hopefully the audio is working. You can hear me. Pardon me. So, today we're going to be looking at making a Mona space, like a first one. In this one, we're not even going to go into Blender or anything like that. We're going to focus completely on Unity. Because if this is the first time you've come to Unity, it can be quite a lot to come across a game engine for the first time. So we're going to be focusing mostly on just getting into Unity, getting a feel for it, understanding what Mona Space is, and the SDK, and all that sort of stuff, as a first pass, for example. Now, you can actually get away with some pretty good results. It won't be as optimized, I guess, but that's fine, because this is the first space in Unity. So let's get into it. Now, all of the content today will basically be based off the Get Started doc in the Mona doc, so docs.monaverse.com. Look for the Get Started doc here, and it goes over all of the things you need to create a Mona space. So, first thing, of course, is to get Unity installed. We're using 2022.23, which is free. You can download the hub, so Unity Hub, which is on unity.com/download on your platform of choice. And once you have this installed, all you need to do then is basically click on this button, and that will open up 2022.2.3 in your installs. So if you've already got it, then it's got that. Otherwise, you got that. Make sure to install this one. Let's go to this one. Yep. Make sure that when this comes up, install the WebGL build support. So make sure there's a tick there, and then continue, or add it there if you forget. So you've got that. WebGL is very important, otherwise it won't be able to build to a WebGL, and you can't use it in a browser, which is kind of important. So, once you've installed Unity 2022, then you need to download the Mona template SDK. So let's make sure we get the latest version. So let's go to, where is it? I use code. Download zip, save, and I'm just going to put this on my desktop because I use this all the time. So let's go space startup main, save. Yes. Okay, we'll have that. That's good. And then we open the space in Unity. So let's get a new workshop going. So, as you can see, there's a few workshops now. Those are all on the YouTube channel. Some of the old ones are on my personal channel, the Mad Empire 42, so you can check out those as well. So let's go 32, my first space. We'll do that. Personally, this is just a me thing. I will build a folder that has all the builds, so that way I can back up very easily. So I'll extract all of these. So just go extract here. I'm using WinRAR. Extract it how you see fit. You can rename this if you want. So my first space, and then you'll have those assets there. So if I wanted to back this up, so say for example I got my space in a place I like it, I can just click on that, go Control-C, Control-V, and then rename this one. And then I have my space backed up, and then I can open that instead. So very easy to do backups, and highly recommended, purely due to Unity being Unity. So once that's done, I can go open, Mona, tutorials, workshops, down the bottom, my first space, builds, and the extracted folder. So click on that one, see those, and go open. Done. Hey Moody, how's it going? Welcome to the stream. How's your projects going? I don't have my web thing. Hang on. There we go. They exist again. Now, this will take a little while. It's creating a lot of the folders and stuff that you'll use in the space. So the first open is usually a little bit longer than others, but once it kicks in, it sort of kicks in, and usually after that it'll be a bit faster. So don't worry too much. Glad to be watched. Glad to be helpful. I'll say that much. So, so I kind of already have a plan of the space in mind. And as noted, we're going to be using Unity only. We're not going to be building anything in Blender, because if that's the first time in Blender, that's a whole process as well. Hey, Bad Chat, how's it going? Alright, so, if this is your first time in Unity, this can be quite a lot. Now, yours would look a little different from mine. I sort of do some game stuff as well, so I'm doing certain things in certain ways. That said, all of these tabs, you can sort of move around and do what you want, put them where you like, dock them where you like. And this is usually my approach. So let's quickly go over that. If this is the first time. Now, this doesn't look like the space we want, because we want a Mona space. So I'm just going to get this in and go Mona load space scenes. And then I'm going to right mouse click on untitled and then go remove scene. And that's your Mona template. And we can start building as we need to. So let's have a look. Game you probably won't use unless you're doing visual scripting and stuff like that. Package manager you might use if you have certain assets, which I've acquired over a long time. Note that buying assets on the Unity store can be a mixed bag because of one, licenses, like what you're allowed to use in an NFT space and stuff like that. Some have directly said you can't use it. Some other ones have issues with shaders. You might have dependencies and stuff. So the asset store, as useful as it is, can be a bit of a risk factor with licenses and assets that work in a Mona space due to how we create mental spaces. So just a bit of a warning there. And then you have scene, which is where you do most of your magic. Your basic tools for the scene is like you have your position, rotation, and scale. We have this tool, which is quite useful for scaling in kind of a different way, so we'll probably use that in a second as well. I don't use this one very often, but you can. So it sort of does everything at once, but I usually go. You can actually use hotkeys for these as well. I think Q... Yeah, I never use them, I should. So Q for movement, W for rotation, E for rotation, R for scale, and T for this cool transform thing here as well. Yes, we'll be looking at the Mona Assets library as well, actually. So we can put that up here. So this is here. We'll get to that in a second. But yeah. I will usually add the animation and animator tabs. You can find all of these in window, animation and animator. Rendering also has lighting, which I pull up, which is not here. So I'm going to pull that up now. So let's go lighting. And I'll just drag that one there because we might get to light mapping. Hopefully we get to light mapping in this session. Now the hierarchy, this one is everything in your space. Note how we have 3 scenes. So we have space, portals, and artifacts. And all of your assets need to be within these game objects. So space, portals, and artifacts. Each of these have a tag, which Mona uses to sort of create the space and mintable files. So make sure that your assets are under that. If they are not, for example, this, so you have 2. If you go to QA, it will show you some issues. So that will be one of them. But if you put it under the right asset, which is QA, it'll fix all that up. So make sure your assets are under those 3. The best way to check is just to collapse everything down and see that. So we have our floor, which you can, of course, delete. Lights, we've just got a directional light, which is real time, which is fine. And then we have a spawn point, which is there. Spawn points need to be blue. If they are not, it's because they do not have anything to land on. So no collider. So colliders are things that you have, so you don't, you can run on things or don't walk through things. It will also change. Oops. It will also change if you are in a collider. So I can't spawn there because it's in a portal. So yeah, make sure you have a spawn point in your space. We also have portals, which allow you to sort of connect to another minted space. That can be found down here under Mona Assets in the project. For example, Portal Prefab, there's a few different types. And we'll look at the hierarchy of that in a second. The Project tab is basically all of your imported assets. So when you create the template, we actually make this add your art here with a bunch of different, what would you call them, folders for putting assets into. So usually, even if I'm using Blender or something else, I'll make the space and then import the assets directly into the project rather than an external middle folder, and then just add them there. So that's why I'll usually make the SDK first. Artifacts are other elements, things like canvases and other 3D assets that you can put links to and stuff. We're not probably going to worry about them today at all. Maybe canvases, but we'll see. But yeah, I just want to focus on making the space itself. Over here we have our inspector. So when you click on an asset, like a light, it will give you all of the elements of that asset. So a light, for example, has a light component with all of the settings for that light. A floor has a mesh renderer with a bunch of options here. A box collider, so you don't run through it. And a material, for example. So every asset that you make might be different, but that's what the inspector does. And then, of course, lighting, which is more about light mapping, which is a very game-focused, more performant approach to lighting. Real-time lights, which allow you to have shadows and things, are very expensive, and we usually keep real-time lights, and that's it here, to a minimum. So 1 to 3 at most, and then use light mapping for the rest. Any questions before moving on? And it's a pretty solid summary of all of the things. Other tools that I use a lot, actually, will be this one. So pivot and center. So this one depends on where... What's a better case of that, maybe? Yeah. So if you change from pivot to center, the pivot location changes. So the center is the center of the object, and pivot is the pivot of the object. So say, for example, I would have exported this out of Blender with that as the base. So when I rotate it, it can be from the base there. Oops. But if I wanted to, it could be the center as well. Global also changes where the pivot is. So toggle tool handle rotation. So local or global, depending on the asset. So if I do that, for example, that will go to reset. But if we go to local, it'll be that. So use them quite a bit. Don't use those so much. But you can use snap if you wanted to. Just turning that there. But ones I do use a lot is over here on this one. You have different tools that allow you to see your scene in different ways. So shaded is pretty much always on, but sometimes I'll use wireframe. Especially because the wireframe will give you an idea of the polygon count, even just visually. So as you can see, the floor is very low polygon, e.g. 1 polygon. And even the door, if I press F, we can zoom into that, quite low polygon here. So if you see an asset that is kind of basically black, especially at this, like how close this is, that's probably not very good. And you need to get those poly counts down, because poly count does affect performance quite a bit. So make sure to get that, and that's how you can see it with that one. You have a bunch of other ones. That said, I very rarely use them. 2D, you can also just press the circle on this one to pull that one up. So if I go top, you'll go like that. But if you press the square in the middle, it'll just go 2D top. And then you can sort of rotate more accurately, so that's good. I got scene lighting or not. Audio on and off. These sort of things. You can toggle different aspects of the scene. Sometimes I'll find that I need to turn off the skybox. Hidden objects. You can sort of hide that and show that. Camera, and this one, which comes up a lot. Mona has quite a lot of gizmos, I guess, if you're using Reactor or things like that. If you want to, you can scale those gizmos down as big or small as you want, or you can just hide them. That said, you will lose the gizmos. So if you need to put them back on, just turn that on. I find scaling down is usually a better way to do it. So those are all very useful tools in Mona, well, in Unity as well. And that's about it for Unity. So yeah, all right. Let's get to making a space. So, as noted, I'm going to stay in Unity for this project. I won't be able to make anything custom in regards to assets. So usually I would use Blender. That said, you can make assets in Unity pretty well using right mouse click on here and then go 3D object. You have cubes, spheres, capsules, cylinders, planes, quads, text as well, and the other ones and terrain. You could use that in here, but we're just going to use these ones because I have sort of like a warehouse / gallery idea in mind. So that's mostly what we're going to do. So let's make a space. Now there's two approaches to this one, so I'm going to do both just to show you. So let's go to move. I'm going to use control, like loose control, to snap our asset as needed. So let's go about maybe that big, just to move our asset. In here, I'm using right mouse click to sort of pan around. Middle mouse click will, so that one's scroll around, that one's pan around, there we go. So middle mouse click and right mouse click. Zoom with the middle. And you'll find that sometimes you'll get to this point where it'll start clipping it. If you press F on the asset, it will sort of zoom in on that and then allow you sort of less clipping problems. That said, you can tweak the clipping here, I think. Where is it? So in this case, we've used dynamic clipping, but if you wanted to, you could sort of adjust that manually. So clipping is when you start cutting off an asset like it did before. So there's a few different approaches around that. That said, F is super useful for that sort of thing. All right. So, method 1, we're going to get a cube. And we're going to scale it. Sort of to there. Go really big this way. And also probably go that way as well. So let's do a pretty tall, no, 3.5 might do it. 0.2, so 20 centimeters wide and 20 meters long. So you can use scale or your transforms up here to set it. Now that seems like a reasonable size that I like. Yep, that works. Now what I'm going to do is actually create an empty and put this asset in it. That way I can move the whole space as needed, and this also is a 0.001 location. And just go pivot to make sure that this is 000. That way, if I wanted to, I could duplicate this. So Control D, and then rotate it like so. And then I'm just going to put that cube in there. That way you have a perfect sort of match with that element. So that's good. Now, the thing I wanted to show is you could use colliders. This feels a bit better to work with. But we will never get outside this. So these walls could be quads. So I'm going to do that as an example as well. So let's go plane. Now, planes are interesting because if I go to wireframe, there's actually a lot more polygons in there. We don't want that because we want a quad, 3D object, quad. So as you can see, that's 1 on 1. But they look exactly the same. So if I do this, move it up a bit, and make it the same size. So this is 1 of 1 of 1, but that's like 10 by 10 by 10. So let's do that. So we have two things like this, but if you go wireframe, this quad is much better than a plane. So if you're doing just flat assets, make sure to use a quad. Don't know why they added a quad. Doesn't make any sense, but okay, so let's go 20. Nope. Let's go 3.5. Let's go 20. Let's make that 0, and let's make that just up. Get a rough idea there. So that's going to be 90. 0. Yeah. Just make sure those are aligned. We've got that. Control D to duplicate, and then rotate that as well. So there we go. Now notice in the game engine that all assets will only have like one face, if that makes sense. There are shaders that you can get that make it double faced, so you'll have two sides. But as noted, we will not see outside this gallery, so we don't actually need that. That said, you'll note that because of that, there's no shadow on this object. So that is a problem of one-sided objects. So for that, what we're going to do, because we're going to be using some light, so I'm going to duplicate that and flip that around, and then you'll have a shadow. But you won't have top, bottom, left, and right polygons. So that's kind of why we're looking at that one. So let's duplicate this one as well. Control D, rotate, and then we have that. So very, very useful in regards to just a couple of small differences between solid objects and quads. Quads will be more performant because there's less polygons. So we'll just look at the comparison there. And then up to you which one you want to use. For a simple space like this, not an issue at all. I recommend naming early. You won't, because I don't. But having names in comparison to just wall, what do you call it? Cube and quad will speed things up eventually, especially when you start getting complicated space. Okay. So, is this too small? Let's find out. Now, these have mesh colliders. And what we'd probably want is box colliders, actually. So, but we'll leave it as is. Go save. Make sure to press save. And then you can go playground. Get a feel for the space and if this is big enough or small, too small, the height is too small, lots of things we can check. So when you press playground files at the top, these two things will come up, a playground website and the files that are in your project's export. So this is the project. As you can see, my first space. Go to exports, and then you'll have the playground files. Drag them over here. And you have your space. So, as a gallery, let's see. Maybe a bit small. So double the length, I think, would be good. Yeah, let's do that. So that's good. Close that down. Close that down. All right. So we want this to be bigger. So let's go there. Once again, holding Control to snap. Now let's use this one because it's quite useful. What it does, it will sort of make a 2D scale of any asset in the space. And you can also use Control to sort of snap that as well. So that's pretty good for that. Notice how, because I didn't select both, I have to create them separately. I do think for this space, I might create them all as this. Boxes are very small, and there are kind of more problems than not with just the quads. So I'm actually going to just grab these instead. So Control D, snap, 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 and Control D. Snap, snap, snap. There we go. All right, so we have a good size there. Okay. Now, next up, let's get a roof going. So I'm going to create a new element here. I'm going to create, so let's go another cube. Move that up. Now in this case, I'm going to press F to zoom in. Go down, let's make that quite thin. maybe 0.1. And then I want to rotate this. Yeah. Maybe 10. Yeah, we'll give that a shot. I'm going to zoom that up a bit. And then... does this work? Yes, it does. Ah, that one. There we go. That's a little bit high. So I'm going to rotate that a little bit more. Get that to about maybe there. Maybe a bit higher. Like so. Okay. Yep, never mind that. Hey, Mishra. How's it going? Okay. Yep, that works. Now, what I'd like to do is sort of create some, like, scaffolding, and then you have that light sort of going in there. So let's quickly do that with... let's put that in the roof as well. So let's just go actual roof. And let's get some scaffolding, I guess you could say. I think I want some textures, though. Yeah, let's do that instead. So, for textures or materials... basically, I'm going to create a couple of ones in here. So you can just go right mouse click on materials and then go create material. So I kind of want a brick one for the walls. And kind of want like I do want that sort of like warehouse feel. So I'm going to do that again. And like that metal corrugated iron kind of thing. Well, let's just go roof. For now. And I'll create probably another one, which is just sort of like metal. And then we need some textures. So if we go to the resources folder on the Monodocs, we actually have asset resources, and then we have textures with a bunch of sort of CCO textures we can use to do all the things. So let's... what kind of bricks do we want? I kind of like the rough one. Yeah, maybe this one. We could decide later. So channel packed. Now, when it comes to texture sizes, this is quite important. The only texture that is allowed to be 4K, basically, is your Skybox, because it takes a lot of space. But that also depends on the detail in that texture. So for file size, the texture size is probably the biggest cost for your space. So if you had a bunch of assets that are 4K, you will get up to that 180 meg or 250 meg now limit real quick. So 2K at most, and then we'll use a couple of tweaks in the Unity space to sort of adjust this as we need to, kind of thing. So this is quite a lot of detail in this, I think, and that's kind of good, but we'll see. So I think channel packed 2K is what we're after. We'll go save as, and then we go to our project. Now the my assets go here, go under assets here, so add your art here, and these are textures. Now this is a zip, so I'll have to unzip those once I sort of get that. Now the next thing we want to do is we need some metal. Metal. There we go. So, kind of like this. Actually, that's pretty much exactly what I want. Yep. 2K. Download. Save. Go back in there. And one more. We just want like a... like just a metal. Kinda like that. Or this maybe. Okay. Well, that said, like I only use standard standard only as well. I very rarely make a new custom or use a different shader than that for most of my spaces. That said, the only reason I will... Ooh, no, this one. Yeah. The only reason I would use a custom one is if I want to do something tricky with Amplify, so I'll make my own shader, or Unlit, in that I don't want the shading to play a part, for example, on a canvas where I just want it to be bright, stuff like that. For that, you would have to use Amplify. Shader Graph isn't supported in the standard, the built-in render pipeline. That said, you can use Shader Forge or Amplify to do node-based shaders if you want. I probably won't cover that in this session, but I think I did. I'll check in a second. But I'm pretty sure I actually did a Amplify tutorial, or workshop a long time ago, so I could get that link to you as well. That said, if we have time at the end of this, once I get this sort of to a point, I might be able to do that, but trying to keep them local. What am I doing? Yeah. So I'm just going to my assets and making sure that those textures are actually available. So I'm going to extract here. Now, in some of these, I don't actually need some of them. And I also need to flip some of them because most tools, Blender, Unreal, other assets will use roughness. Unity uses smoothness. So unfortunately that one usually needs to be flipped. So I'm going to get rid of those zips, and then we've got those. I'm going to get rid of height. Now notice these are 10 meg each. And I think if you use your mintable file, it will actually create, like, add these. So this will add to the mintable file as well. So make sure that you sort of get rid of the textures you don't use in your space once you're minting, making the mintable files for the space. So let's get into it. So we have our brick. So let's put our bricks together. So albedo is color. Let's have a bigger look here. So albedo is color. We have our normal, which goes here. Because normals are a specific type of texture, you do need to make that it is a normal. So you can just go fix now, because it will pick up that it's meant to be, and then it will look better. The other option is click the texture and then just go texture type from default to normal. So you can use that as well. And then we have normal roughness, which is not what we want. We actually need something else for that. So we'll have to make our own metallic element. If you want to, you can just tweak this. Metallic brick. This is not going to be very polished, but let's put a little bit in there. So let's go 0.3. And that's fine for that one. Now, roof. We want that to be corrugated. So, diffuse, normal, fix now. And yeah, not the correct types. And then we have our other one, galvanized steel. Albedo, normal. Fix now. We want that to be a little bit more metallic. So let's actually put that as metal. Put that to about there, maybe. That works. Same with the roof. We didn't really tweak that as well. So let's go metal. Maybe a little less. And then we can tweak that later. Okay. So we have our 3 materials. So let's drag them, drop these on. There's the roof. There's the brick. Yeah, the problem with that idea is that the normal and rough are basically normal map based. So that would apply if I use the smoothness normal texture, actually, I think. So metalness and roughness, we could probably do that with it. Yeah. Okay, let's do that. So I'm going to download this again. So metalness and roughness should have been the one I used. So we actually get roughness. And I need that corrugated iron as well. Was it this one? Yeah. Is that one better than the other one? No, I kind of want the rusted one. So go to 2K, download. And let's do that. Now, so let's do exactly that. The way I do metalness and smoothness is exactly what you're saying there, Moody, is creating the channels in a Photoshop file to create that as needed. I get very frustrated, but this is how Unity does it, so... it's a little deeper than I wanted to go for this tutorial or this workshop, but I think it is pretty important to do. So let's do that. So let's go to those assets again. Textures. I'm actually going to get rid of all of these. And it's going to break in Unity, but that's fine. The brick will leave just the steel. There we go. So, extract here. Yeah, so you have a roughness now. So if I go in here, these are going to break. Well, some of it's going to break. Because we need to redo some of these. So, brick's fine. Metal, lost. So, let's just make sure that's in there and go fix now. That's fixed. Let's go back to roof. And put that one in there as well. Fix now. Okay, cool. So, let's go into new file. These are 2048. Create. And then I'm going to open those two, or the one actually. Mona, VRM, no. Tutorials. Workshops. My first space, builds, my first space, assets. Too deep, too many. Okay. So we want the roughness and the roughness. Okay. Now, the information we're playing with here is in this asset here. So if I click on the material, so let's go metal, roll over metallic, you'll see that it has metallic R and smoothness A. So what this means is the red channel is metallic and the smoothness is the alpha channel. Now the way I do this is basically, let's go galvanized, no, let's go corrugated metal, this one. So Control A, put this in here, and paste. So I've got that. So if you look at channels, for example, the alpha, which doesn't exist, the red channel is, I always forget this as well. So, metallic is red. So we actually want this to be metallic, which means we want this to be white. So new channel, alpha. Fill that in, nope. White. Now, the other thing I'll do, and I always get a bit mixed up with this, if this actually works, is create a folder. Sort of like so. Yeah, so you got that. So I'll just go new channel. How do you do it? Plus. That one. Yeah, that works too. So you can go plus there or new channel. Alpha 1. Put... I don't think this is going to work, so I'm gonna remove that. But I'd like to check that, so I'm going to do that. Go to File, Export as PNG, so it has its alpha channel. So this one is called Rusty Corrugated, and then I'm going to put Metallic and Smoothness here. Let's give that a shot. So it's metallic. So I want it about there. The thing is also that's based on roughness, so we need to flip that. So let's go image, adjustments, invert. And that's now smoothness. So darker roughness, that's pretty... It's kind of in the middle, isn't it? But yeah, invert will usually make smoothness. So there's that. And that's okay, because the thing is we want it to be full metallic, right? So the... Oh, I did it wrong, that's why. Okay. Because I always get them mixed up. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to put this in the alpha channel, because that's the smoothness. And then the red channel has to be red. I really don't like how Unity does this. So the alpha's there. Metallic is red channel, which is white. We'll give that a shot. For you new users, I don't recommend doing any of this. I would actually just recommend using the sliders. There we go. Yeah, so you can see that a bit better. So yeah, once again, so summary, do what I say, don't do what I do. Metallic is on the red channel, so that's usually going to be a full white or full black. You can adjust if you want to, but generally speaking, metallic is 1 or 0. And then the smoothness is the alpha. Yeah. So if you look at this, the base color is white, so that's the metallic. So let's do that. Metallic. So it is metal, and then the alpha is the smoothness. Now the way to do that is just select that, Control A, Control C, channels with your added alpha, Control paste, and then it's done. Show that, and then that's how you do it. So annoying for sure, but does the job. So let's do that again properly with this one. So I think Control R, let's invert this one. So adjustments, invert, Control A, Control C, channels, let's do Moody's approach, which is just the plus down there, which is what we want. Add that in there with Control V. New layer, and then export that. Galvanized steel, MS. No. And even if you've done this, you can sort of adjust as needed as well. So you can see the effect there where the dark is not as bright as the others. So yeah, different approaches. And then if you want to, of course, you can just invert that if you want to apply that. Like so. Which one's that? So, bit of a different direction there, but let's get back to it. Yes, the amount of hotkeys I do and don't know is really quite frustrating, to be honest. So, yes, you can use Control I to invert. The thing is, I'd like to say yes, but it's not working as well as I'd like. But it does seem to be working, so I'm not too sure. Hang on. The other approach, and let's give this a shot. The other approach is, for example, once you've got the alpha, hold Control and select that, and then just make it a mask of that. And then maybe remove that one. So you have the metallic, which is solid, and the alpha there. So that might work as well. So which one is this? That's the galvanized iron. So let's give that a shot. I actually might turn the metallic down a bit because that's a bit intense. So let's go maybe there. Alt delete to fill that in. Let's give this a shot. On this one. Yeah, that definitely works. Okay, so that's a better approach, maybe. So, on that, then, Control select the alpha that you've got. Put all of your metallic color as a shader, and then just put that in the thing. Put that in the mask with add vector mask. Quite useful. You could do that, yeah. So let's do it. See how that goes. So we need the red. Can we remove that? Delete channel. Sure. Maybe not. Yeah, maybe not do that. It's a good idea though, but yeah, maybe that's not. Or maybe there's a way to do it. There could be, but I'm going to move on either way, because it's way outside the barrier of the first space for sure. So that's a better approach, I think. So let's do that with the other one as well. So let's put that in folder. We've got this in the channels, so control click that, and then just go that one. Then we can remove that. And then save that out. Seems to be a much better approach to it. That one. Yeah, but if you flatten it, it does seem to get rid of the alpha there. So, might be possible, but I'm going to move forward just due to the fact that I would like to get this face done in the time that we have. Okay. That said, that is much better. You've definitely got the sort of appeal there with the different areas, so that's good. Now, with our roof, we have our metallic, but I don't want the corrugated iron to be that large. So in this case, we can use our tiling. So let's go 10 and 10. Nope, let's go 5 and 5. Yeah, that works for me. So that's good. Now, over here, we actually have the bricks, which we want to tile as well. But because we have two different lengths of wall, we're actually going to need two different materials. So, let's get the small over here, put that on the edges. And then make sure the long is on the end here. That way we can tweak these. So let's go maybe 10. That looks good. Maybe 5. Yep. Excellent. We also want a floor, I guess. So let's get some concrete. Smooth or rough? Well, smooth is based on the metallic and smoothness, so let's... Because it's kind of like that color. No, I kind of want the roughness, so let's get this one. Meld roughness 2K. Download. Alright, so we need a new material. Right mouse click, material, concrete. Base color, normal, fix. And for this one, I'm just going to make it sort of not at all. And let's tile this one as well. So let's go 10, maybe. Now the problem with this one is it looks very tiled, which I don't really want. But one way around that is you could actually just sort of rotate it a bit, and then it's less obvious. So there's that. Okay. So we have our basic space with some basic metals. Let's get some... not that one. Actually, no. I'm gonna put this in scaffolding. If I want to move all of this, I can. So cube. Now, if that was 10, which I think it was, 0.2. No, it's 0.25 then. And that will be 20. That will be 40. Now I'm going to put the metal on that to sort of get that effect there, and tile that as well. So let's go with maybe 10, 20, 40. Yeah. Cool. So I want that made. I can use that as a base for pretty much everything else as needed. Let's duplicate those two, rotate them that away. Now, this is a good example of using this one to just make that smaller rather than scaling, because otherwise it would be from sort of the center. All right. Okay. Let's grab that one again. This one's a better case of just scrolling that one. Now this will require a new material as well, but I might actually reduce that a bit. So I'll go 0.2. So we need to metals. So duplicate that one. And might even make that a bit smaller. So 0.1. Yeah, I think that's good. Okay. Once again, just using Control to snap. To sort of be every 2 meters. Like so. Alrighty. Now, we need some light, I think. So our sort of base thing. So because I've designed this space with kind of like limited lighting, but I sort of want more light to be coming in, so we can definitely do that with rotating. So let's get this on the local. And then rotate that way. So I get that light in there. That angle's pretty good. So that's cool. Next up, I kind of actually want to get these on the ground as well, so like get a baseline. So let's duplicate that and put it on this side. And I'm going to grab all of that because I want that to be lower. So you can sort of see it on that side. Cool. And then I'm going to duplicate that to put it down the bottom. Alrighty. Okay. So let's get a feel for this space now that we've sort of made the basic ground, walls, and ceiling. Now I'm going to have to put some lights in the space. That one window is not going to be very big. But, yeah. I think the normal map on the floor is a little bit too big. I can easily drop that. I need to lower those down a bit. I might increase the height of the side, like the ceiling, because that seems a bit small over here kind of thing. So I want like a feeling of space. But definitely feels like kind of a warehouse, so that's pretty good. So, I have to do all of that. Let's do this. So let's go higher by about half, maybe. Maybe there. Get all of these. And instead of scaling from there, I'm going to use this. Once again, it's a very useful tool for doing that. And then we want to grab all of those and move them down as well. So just make sure that goes to there. Better. All right. So the next thing we need to do, times 3, you reckon? Like, I could. I 100% could. And because it's so quick, like, it's so... This is why I love Mona. Like, it's so easy to test the space in browser. Just by doing, like, that, pressing that one button, dragging it in, and then you're in. It's done. Yeah, that's better. Cool. Alright. I think we're good. Now, the next thing I want to do... What do I want to do? Yeah. We want to reduce the concrete alpha, actually. So let's go 0.3. And that'll be a bit less concrete. Alright. Next up, what we want to do is create kind of like gallery walls, if that makes sense. So I'm actually going to grab maybe these ones, actually. That doesn't have a thing. Why doesn't that have a thing? Oh, no, it does. Just doesn't there. Okay, cool. Grab those. Control D. And then I'm going to put these elsewhere for reasons. So I'm going to create a new empty gallery wall. Oops. That didn't work very well. Gallery wall. And I use bracket 1 because it automatically uses that system. So if I create a duplicate of that, it will sort of do a 2. So if you want to do automatic numbers, you have to use bracket 1. I'm more of an underscore 1 guy myself, but, you know. Okay. So we're going to grab these and move them to 0, 0, 0 for reasons. Nope. That one. Yeah. That way, this will be the correct position of that. Way too big. Maybe that. And we might also need, unfortunately, a new texture, because we want the bricks to be sort of the same size across the board. So we might have to tweak that a bit. Well, I like that. That's not bad. So brick long, brick small, brick tiny, I guess. Gallery, we'll do that. So let's go maybe 4. 3. 4.7. Bit wider. Trying to make that and that look the same. Yeah, I think that's good. Okay, so now that we have that wall, I can actually start making many of them. So let's go maybe there. We want a fair bit of space between them. But not too much. The accurate amount of... So maybe there. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3. And 3 at the end kind of thing. So I don't mind that. There we go. Now these have like too many colliders, but they're box colliders, so it's not much of an issue, and it's a very simple space, so that's fine. But do note that these are now red, so we need to make sure we move the spawn point. Where do we want that? Maybe there? And we kind of want a door as well, so let's actually rotate that one around there. Like so. Yeah, for sure. And I haven't used reference because I kind of envisioned like exactly this thing in my head. But that said, like, yeah, like you could easily use Midjourney or even Google. Let's do warehouse gallery and let's see if we can come up with any good ideas to improve the space even more. So, images. There we go. So they use white walls, and for a gallery that actually makes more sense. So I should do that. Let's do that. And then I also probably won't need to worry about the bricks anymore. So let's do none. And we also don't want the normal map. Yeah, no, okay, fair enough. So let's get rid of all of the brick. And just do that. So, ta-da. Now we don't want smoothness to be very high. Let's put that at 0.2. Yeah. Okay. So we have our warehouse and then we have our white-based rooms. So that's pretty cool. Next thing we need to do is kind of lights. So let's look at some light mapping, I think. Yeah, well, yeah. I had an idea, and it was cool, but then, yeah, like, it's kind of clear that every gallery has white walls. So, I had to do that, to be honest. This one doesn't, though. But, yeah. So, the thing also is noticing, like, all of these have, like, spotlights on the walls. So, that's kind of, like, an interesting approach to how we could do lighting as well. Yeah, so it's a thing. It's like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. It's going to be fine. And then, like, halfway through, it's like, I don't know what I'm doing. I need to figure it out. Reference is up to you, depending on how clear an idea you have in your head versus what you're going for. So you have lots of options in regards to when to look at reference. But, you know, maybe do it by default. Just to be inspired that little bit more. Okay. Now, another thing that I find super useful, and I'm actually going to undo a lot of these gallery walls because of it. So I'm actually going to get rid of all four and use this one. Now, the reason I'm going to use this one is I'm going to create a prefab of this. So then when I copy it and I want to modify it, I can modify the one and all of them will be updated. So this is a super useful thing to have moving forward. It's a little bit more advanced, but it will save you a lot of time if you want to sort of do cool stuff. So I'm going to do that. Now, to do that, all I need to do is grab the asset and drag that down to prefabs. So we have our gallery wall. This has a blue box now. So when I duplicate this one, so let's do that. So let's go, what was it, every 2. Duplicate again. 2, and then one more. Is it one more? Sort of that. What we can do in this case is if I wanted to, I could sort of affect this asset here. So let's go to the cube. I want to adjust this light map a little bit more. So let's go 30, 20. But that's the material. So that's going to apply to all of them because it's just the material. But let's say I want to put some lights in. So let's go spotlight. Now notice how there's a little green plus. Actually, let's do the easier version. So I'm actually going to go, well, I'm going to right mouse click, go to prefab, and then go open asset in context. So you'll have this gallery wall now. I can't edit anything in the space except for this one object, and that's the object here. But if I add a light, so let's say spotlight. So let's rotate this down sort of thing. Let's sort of put it maybe kind of there. Notice how it happens on all of them, which is pretty cool. And that's because I'm editing in context, for example. So there's definitely different approaches to how you do it. You can do it in isolation. Let's adjust some of these elements. So let's go to the range so it's a bit softer. So that, because that sort of has that fade. Let's turn it up a bit. So intensity, where's that one? 3. That's cool. Move it up a bit. All right. Now you'll notice that we sort of lose it when you start having too many lights in a space. You'll find that if you go to, where is it? Important, and important, it will show them correctly. We have that. Cool. Do we want 5 or do we want 4? I think 5 makes more sense. So let's do that again. Yeah, prefabs are honestly pretty great. Big fan. Especially if you have complicated spaces that like have a lot of assets. It does save a lot of time. Now, as it stands, these are real time, and that's also a lot of lights. Now, the thing we're going to look at next is basically light mapping, which basically is used when baking that light information into the textures in order to sort of put it as file size rather than real-time performance. So for that, we're going to be looking at making these baked. Now, because these are... This might be interesting. I don't know how to UV map, generate UV maps on assets. So we'll see how that goes. That's going to be an interesting one. Okay, so we need to duplicate these. Rotate them around. And then back here. A bit higher. And there we go. Okay, cool. Right, and then if we go back here, you'll notice that all of these assets are now updated. which is pretty cool. Another approach, if I click this, it will just go to the thing in context, so pressing that arrow here. You can also, if you want to, go to Prefab and then open asset in isolation, which is just that. So many different ways to do or use prefabs, but yeah. I'll usually just go like that, probably, and then adjust. So pretty quick. Okay, so let's see how lighting goes with assets that might not be able to might not be able to generate the UVs. So, quick overview of light mapping is create a new lighting source. So go new. I'd usually can leave it down the bottom or just put it up top. Completely up to you. I'll usually put it in my assets just because I'm neat. What do we got, Moody? So, Moody says, search Google for picture frames, pick a frame image, then export as is, remove artwork in Photoshop, and in Blender import as one plane and inset once, separate the inset plane. Make it a canvas object, then project the image from the view on the... What is that? What are you trying to say there? If it's a canvas, you don't need to do that, because the canvas image is going to be imported out afterwards. So what's your goal with that particular thread there, Moody? While you answer that, I'm going to jump on this one. So I'm going to rename... Where did it go? There. So I'm going to rename that to warehouse lighting. That'll do. I'm going to change this to GPU, so it'll be a bit faster. I'm going to reduce all of these numbers by half because it'll take a while to render. I usually put this one up to 2048, but it depends on you. Light matte compression, high quality. I will put the ambient occlusion in there. And that's usually it for the first pass. So we'll do that. If you remember, I made the spotlights baked. And I'm going to do that with the real-time light as well. So just changing that to baked. We also need to make sure that all of these are set to static. Now, the main one we're looking for is actually contribute GI, so global illumination. The other ones are just tools for reflection probes or other optimization tactics, but usually I'll just put static on because that's easier. Let's do that on the ceiling as well. I'm not gonna put these ones in because I don't want them to have the information because they're metal and doesn't really count. I am going to grab these though and put them in the reflection probe. So let's grab that. Now the reflection probe is because we're using metal in our space. Let's just do this. So what that means is when we make a reflection probe, it will embed them into the reflection probe because that's another optimization tactic as well. We'll get to that in a second. So, this also, which is already set to static. These are not, so I'm going to... this is another thing. I'm going to put static on that. And then go, yes, change children. So all the children are. But you'll notice that this one is not static, even though it is a prefab. Now, the reason for that is I've edited this in the scene. And what we can do is it overrides, and then just go apply all. So when you go here, now it is a static. So if you edit one of these, you can apply any of the things that you've tweaked with this tool here. So it's very useful. Okay, Moody. Ah, you're talking about the frames. Gotcha. Right. Yeah. You could definitely do that with a canvas frame. 100%. That said, I kind of want to lean towards a simple, like, canvas element, if that makes sense. Because I do like the idea of, it kind of depends. Yeah, we'll come back to that. But you're right. If you want, like, ornamental frames, for sure, you could definitely use that approach that Moody is pointing out in the chat. So get on that. All right. So everything is set to static. The lights are also set to static, so I should be able to bake this. But I'll have to shut up. I might go get a drink while this bakes, and we'll see how that goes. So done. Cool. Drink for me. Why is it taking so long? It's a simple space. usually, and tell me if the audio is breaking up. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's fine. Usually something this simple doesn't take this much time. I wonder if, because I'm using Unity assets, the baking takes longer or something. Not too sure. It could also be because this is the first time. So it needs to unpack and generate the light map information. But I do feel we might need... We might not be able to use the cube because it doesn't generate the light maps well. Let's do some research. Five minutes to go, supposedly. Microsoft minutes, basically the same thing. Is the audio okay? Like, usually if I'm baking it, it all gets breaky. So I'm not too sure. Seems okay. Now the reason lightmap UVs might not work is because the basic Unity assets, like the cube, the capsule, or those sort of things, I don't think you can actually put generate lightmap UVs on that. So this approach might not work. And therefore, I'm wasting everyone's time. That said, if you're making... Okay, it's doing something. If you're making assets in Blender, this is much easier, actually. So you click on the model. And I don't think I have any. And then you'll select the generate lightmap UVs on that, and then problem solved. Yeah. Let's do it. Okay. Back to it. All right, let's see what's happening. Actually, let's look at the lighting as Moody was sort of pointing out. Okay. So that's the floor. Okay, so they do have separate ones. So that kind of works out. But we don't have enough lighting because we're only getting ambient here, so I'll have to tweak that a bit as well. But let's give it a shot. Let's give it a look. Yeah. Okay. So as long as we made everything a bit brighter, I think this actually works pretty well. You'll notice that like the walls are like a little bit some problematic depending on the space and depending on like how it cuts up to those sort of things. But we can work on that pretty easily. Okay. So what we need to do then is we need 2 directional lights. And I'm just going to turn the shadows off on that one. And let's maybe turn that down a bit. So let's go 0.5. I think that works. Lighting takes ages. Like baking and light mapping and then tweaking, and it's really quite problematic. But it's definitely worth it. And a big part of that comes down to sort of, yeah, setting these to smaller resolution to start so you get the right amount of light. So a bake actually goes a lot faster. And then once you've got sort of where you want it to go, then you can tweak it. So I'm going to move that up. So basically the space, the light map space is bigger, so the quality of it is better. So I'm going to double that. I'm going to leave them low, and then I'm just going to leave it for now because I think everything is kind of where we want it to be. Now, it does look like these actually get, like the light map UVs are correctly made, but I did make a quick gallery wall. Now, the main point that you're looking at is if you're looking at assets and you're importing them from external things on the model itself, make sure to have generate light map UVs to on, and then go apply, and that way it will pull it apart as well, and then of course make it static and the light static, and then that's how you do that. So I'm going to leave that out there just to show that example. I'm also going to apply the materials that we're using. So we have sort of metal on that. And then we have concrete. Nope. Brick. Yeah. So we got that as well. So I'm just going to put that there just to show you the fact that that exists. And that's how you would go about that. If that makes sense. So yeah. Note that if you're making an external wall, it won't have a mesh collider, so you'll be able to run through it. So in that case, you could just go add component, box collider is best, and done. So that's how that easy sort of that is. I kind of wanna. Yeah, I'm gonna put this in there. Prefab, open prefab in context. Let's drop the wall in here. Now you'll notice in this case you have this sort of like fighting between the two polygons because the polygons are in exactly the same space. That's called Z fighting, and you do not want that. So if you do have Z fighting, you would move one polygon in front of the other as needed to sort of get that effect cleaned up. I don't think I applied... Ah, there we didn't. Okay. So I'm going to get rid of that again. Because I need to apply the materials to these. So we go wall, and then we've got brick, I think. Nope. Metal. There we go. So every time, if you've applied the materials on your object, they will always be applied on there already, if that makes sense. So that's cool. Let's have a look at some of the elements here, which look like they haven't been applied correctly. So let's go back there. That one's fine. Let's move it in a little bit, maybe. There we go. Okay, cool. All right. So that's our space, basically. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, that'd be an interesting effect. Like, I think as long as you know the things, if you know how to do something, you can always break it. And I think that's one of the more interesting parts of game design is basically finding hacks or ways to create an effect like a light flickering with things that are usually considered detrimental. So that's kind of fun. Okay. Now next up, let's quickly make some canvases, I think. So we need some elements to do. So let's do that. So canvas prefab. Now once again, this has to be under the artifacts game object. So if we close it, it's all done. Let's rotate that like so. Let's put it at the end here. Now, if you wanted to, of course, you could use what would you call it? A frame, as when you was pushing. And I might do one. But once again, this is the first space, so we're going to keep it simple. So we're not going to do that. Make sure that if you scroll out, occasionally at far distances, you'll get Z fighting. So make sure that that is an element there as well. Yeah, we could definitely do that. So let me get some canvases, and then we can look at different approaches there. Gallery wall. Oh, let's just go 1, 1, 1. So with the canvases, basically you need to sort of space them out as you see fit. So that's good. But make sure that your canvas unique asset has actually a unique name. So just this one. 3, 4, and 5. If you wanted to put a frame, you could put it inside the frame assets. So let's say an object around that. I'm not going to, just because I don't want to. I just want to keep them simple assets. Do we want to make these unlit? I think we kind of do. So I'm going to go to this and check this standard to unlit texture. That way these will be bright and do not take the lighting in consideration. So depends on your space and what you want to do with that. Completely up to you. Let's go center, global, rotate all of those. And then move them this way. So if you notice there's a bit of fighting. I don't want that. So just move it enough. Once again, zoom out to make sure there's no Z fighting at distance. That's good. And then naming, continuing. So let's go 7 because this one is 6. I do recommend like using like, what would you call it? Names that make sense. You'll have a lot of canvases, so if you sell your space to an owner and you have unique canvas 1, unique canvas 2, that's not really going to help them find out where the space is. So having something a little bit more useful would be probably good. So that's good there. Okay. So now that we have the 5, we can just grab all of these and then duplicate that. Because I used snap the first time, it's very easy to just snap and align. Like so. Good, good, good. And the last thing we need to do is basically rename everything. So in this case, we could just go unique wall 2. Now, this is a little annoying in regards to making sure that you have to do this. If you don't, it will tell you. So not that one, this one. So you'll have in the spacing, yeah, because of that. Where's that one? So that's outside the space object. So that's good. And then we have 2 or more canvases have the same game object name. So for that, it's basically referencing these elements here. So basically, I want to make sure 1, 1. Okay, 2. So that's 2. Cool. There we go. 2, 2, 2, 2, and continuing through. We need AI to just fix this up. Glad you enjoyed it. Hopefully you join again and we can teach you more things. That's 3. Yeah, apologize for this is a little bit dull. I did see there was someone did add Unity. Sorry, did add artificial intelligence to Unity, so you could sort of type in like make a bunch of cubes in random positions, and it kind of did it. So text to game, I guess, which was kind of interesting. That said, it was a little flaky, but it definitely worked. So we're definitely going to get to a point where it's just like, I don't want to do this. Just rename everything how it should be, and it'll do it. Not there yet, but we're getting there. Definitely pros and cons to AI, but getting rid of all the boring stuff, definitely a pro. What's everyone's thoughts on AI? Good? Bad? And last set. Yeah. 5. Nearly there. Yeah. Last one. And QA will tell me if I'm correct. QA. Yeah. Alright, cool. Let's save that. Let's actually get rid of that one. Don't really need it. And let's build it. See how it looks. There we go. So the last thing we basically need is to get that light mapping to make it a bit brighter. Maybe we put the brick wall back on the outside walls. So the canvas, like the gallery in the middle. I kind of like that idea. Yeah, let's do that. So back to bricks. Now we will need 2 of those because the small and large. So let's put that on there. And then we can go 6. Yeah, there we go. Okay, cool. Now, let's look at the Mona library and see what we've got in there. Now, we have a light probe generator, which we could actually use. Yeah, let's do that. I'll get to that in a second, but that's very useful. So just go download. Okay, that's done. We do have an AI material generator, so if you want to use that, you could use that. But in this case, I usually use CCO because it's kind of, you know what you're getting. Text to image usually takes like 3 attempts. And with that one, you have to use, I forget which one it is, but it uses kind of units of how much you can, like you get X amount of free generations, I guess you could say. So we have some doors. Do we want a door? I don't want a door that opens, but I do want a door. So let's grab one of these. Doesn't matter which one. Let's do this one. And let's go, yep. And then we also have community assets. So we have a bunch of portals, lots of really cool, interesting stuff. Some speakers, maybe. So yeah, there's a lot of pretty cool assets that you can download and put into your spaces if need be. So I'm just going to get the door, which is in the library. Where does that go? Mona library. Reactor assets. Doors. Bidirectional door. Let's put that here. Now, as it stands, this is actually a reactor door, so it will open and close. But we don't want that because we don't want people to escape. So I might actually... Yeah, where do doors go? Let's put one up here. Okay, now I have to put it there. And then I'm actually going to unpack this and get rid of all the reactor stuff. So let's remove that animator, and then we have a door. So that's good. That is outside the space, so I'm going to put that into the assets as well. Let's get the spawn point and move that up near the door. And I also kind of want to actually rotate that so it sort of faces the direction that you're going to go. That's cool. And let's get a duplicate of those and move this up just to sort of get that element as well. So 2 units, just keep that the same. There we go. Okay, cool. Save. Yeah, GPT's and everything now. Well, like we're done. We are replaced. So yeah, pros and cons. That said, like it does save a lot of time. And I have a lot of projects that I'd like to do that are a lot bigger than just one person can do. But with like all of the AI that's out there now, I might actually be able to do some of them. So it's kind of cool. All right. So yeah, like what NVIDIA's really doubled down with AI. So what's it called? Canvas, which is like do like paint images and it'll just make it really cool. That actually holds skyboxes as well. On that, let's add a skybox. One more light map. Actually, what I'm gonna do now, I mentioned I imported the light probe generator. Light probes are very important in regards to dynamic objects, and the avatar is an example of a dynamic object. So anything that's animated or moving around that doesn't use the light map, because a light map is going to be static. You cannot move a light map. So very performant and honestly looks a lot better, but it can't move. So to light your avatars better, we can actually use a light probe generator, which I imported from the library, or you could create your own. So we're going to use the light probe generator just because it's faster and quicker. And I'm going to quickly adjust as needed. So basically, and I'm not sure you can see it. Hopefully you can. You adjust the blue box around where you want your light probes to be generated. So we just want them in that space, like so. And I will usually just go generate and see how it goes. And you can see all of the little dots. Let's make those a bit bigger. All those yellow dots will take in consideration sort of where the assets are, where the light is. And every time an asset runs between these two dots, or any of these two dots, the color will adjust on that dynamic object. So each of those dots has enough light mapping information to create some cool stuff. Now, if you want to merge them a bit, you can sort of tweak these elements. And then if you wanted to, you can 100% do it manually. So say, for example, Once that's done its job, I can use Edit Light Probe Positions and just move them around as I see fit. So, very useful tool to get light probes done real quick. So you can adjust as needed. If I was going to make this manually, so let's say we get rid of this one. So let's do it from scratch. So make a light probe asset, like just blank. Go add light probe, go light probe up the top. Then light probe group. And then edit light probe positions. And then you can just move these around as you need to. Like so. Once you sort of have your baseline, then you can sort of Control D to duplicate that. And basically add as many as you need to. They're not too expensive. You don't want to go crazy, of course. But, so we've got that sort of element there. Anywhere where there's a lot of light changing, you probably want to add more. But a lot of this space doesn't really change that much. So I'm just going to do a very flat, sort of universal approach to this and see how that looks. Now, when you light map, this information will get baked in there as well. So that's good. And the last thing we're going to add is a reflection probe. So go down to light again. Light probe group is there. Reflection probe is here. What a reflection probe does is, once again, for performance reasons, bakes all of the information into a texture. So the file size is bigger. But it runs much faster. And again, this is baked information, so it doesn't update. But much higher performance. So I'm going to move the kind of ball about head height, kind of there for now, and then leave that as is. Now, because I've done one round of lighting, I could just go bake, but I'm going to sort of do it all together with this one thing. So yeah. The desk. Where am I going to... Oh, yeah, okay. Do I have that? Hang on. Tileable? Yep. I think that's it. Oh, I didn't export it. That's a good idea, though. As noted, I can't generate UVs on assets that are built in Unity. That said, it seems to do it automatically, so that's fine. But yeah, if I'm importing assets, like these ones, so the door, I will actually create static. And just to make sure, I will make sure that the door model has generate light map UVs on as well. So that's a good thing to note. Okay, cool. Save. So while this bakes, I might actually export the desk from the other one. So I might do that. All right. Didn't use it because it did update them manually. So these are kind of already in there. What it doesn't do is adjust the scale of these. So there is that. So because of that, no, I'm gonna keep this Unity only for the first space. I'm gonna keep out of Blender. So we'll do that. So yes, a lot of the things you're saying, Moody, are good points, but for first space, I don't want to go into Blender too much. I don't want to do any of that. This is purely making a space in Unity on its own. So we'll do that. Okay. Done. Directional, like, so let's save. Just want to make sure all my lights are baked. They are. Cool. Alright, I'm going to have to go silent for a bit while I rebake. But so I'll grab the desk. I think having a desk might be an interesting thing, but it doesn't have a chair. So I'm not too sure, actually. Maybe not. Okay. That was taking too long. So I think the reason for that could be because of the default Unity assets. So the cube and the quad and all of those. If you are importing assets from Blender, which is a recommended approach to it, you'll have more control, more facilities to creating light mapping correctly and all the rest of it. But in this case, I did want to focus on just the first space. So you can make spaces in Unity with just Unity if you wanted to. So what I'm going to do, because that's like 2.5 hours, I think what do you call it? It's generating the UVs for default things, and I think it takes a bit longer for some reason. I'm not too sure. I can pretty much guarantee, I'd like to say that I can pretty much guarantee, if you're creating Blender assets with generate lightmap UVs, once again, like where is it? This one here, that will be a lot faster. So there are some limitations when using light mapping with default assets, I guess you could say. So what I'll probably do is wrap it up there. I will bake this and then get this up as a final image on in the Discord. So people can see where it is. I'll put it up live, people can run around. And that's it, basically. One gallery space made. Only in Unity and the Mona library. So yeah, pretty cool. All right, so let's wrap it up there. Any questions? Thanks, Zap, for popping in. Good to see you around. Thanks for chatting as well. Always adds a bit of a vibe to chat to, and good questions and answers and suggestions from Moody as well. So yeah, there's many different ways to make a space. So yeah, this one we focused mostly on creating a space just using Unity. So we've used default assets like cubes and quads. And we've also used the Mona library, so there's a couple of assets in there, such as doors and portals. We've also created canvases in the space. Now, I have done light mapping, but for a first space, I probably wouldn't recommend using light mapping, light probes, or reflection probes just yet. Make a space, learn the tools, and I would probably learn Blender and making assets there before light mapping and light probes and stuff like that. The order is completely up to you. I personally find light maps, light probes, or reflection probes very important and useful for optimization, but also it makes the space look better and run better. So there's a lot of pros to the light mapping approach. That said, it does add a bunch of complexity to a first space. So if this is your very first time, I probably wouldn't worry about it. But keep them in mind for a later space, or once you've got it to a space that you're happy with, then you can start looking at it. So say, for example, just use 1 or 2 directional lights, and then remove your light probes, and the reflection probe. Now, with the spotlights, I would probably... you would have to turn those off. So because these are prefabs, let's go into that, and let's turn those off. Because you definitely do not want... What is it? So 10 10 real-time lights. In real time, that would be way too expensive. And because we did that, it's done it on all of them. So let's get rid of the lighting completely. So none. And then go save. One thing I do want to do is a skybox. So I'm going to do that before we shut up. Or close up, because everyone knows this skybox. It is the Unity Skybox, and you don't want it. So let's do a quick run around in Playground without all of the light mapping, all of the spotlights, all of that. Just to show that it can be done. Okay. Ah. Yeah, that's the thing. So sometimes if you click on a canvas, like it'll like just kind of do interesting things. So don't worry about that too much. Interesting. Ah, okay. So I dragged one of the textures onto this by mistake. So I've got to fix that. Okay. So that looks alright. Now, let's change the sky. Now, the sky place... Sky place? What do you call it? HDRI Haven, I think it is. Yep. So, Polyhaven, HDRIs. And basically you have a bunch of skyboxes. Now, for the one we want, we kind of want a bright one with nice clouds. Maybe this one? This one. Kind of this one, actually. I like this one. Oh, that one. That one's pretty cool. Yeah, let's do that one. So, click on that. This one can be 4K. HDR is usually what I go to. Let's just go download. Put this in our textures. My first space. Yep, that's correct. Okay. Back to the Unity space. Now, we need a new material as well. So let's create a material. I'm just going to call this Skybox. Then we have our textures. Now, notice this one, it's 10 meg. It's pretty big. But we can adjust that as needed, but won't worry about that. So, we need to go texture shape to cube, and then go apply. So yeah, texture shape there to cube. Then we can go to our material, Skybox. Go to standard. I forget where it is. Skybox, cube map. And then we can drop this into our cube map there. Done. If you wanted to, you can adjust the exposure, you can adjust the rotation, but we don't need to. And then all we need to do with that material that we've just created is drag and drop into the Skybox. Done. Save. All right, so let's get this onto Mona. So I'm just signing in to monaverse.com with my wallet. Sign in there. And in that we can go just create space. Now I can't show you my wallet because there's a lot of cool stuff in it and it's a bit sneaky. So I have to show you from the wallet part. So you'll have like a create space up the top. What do we want to call this? Warehouse gallery. Warehouse gallery. Quick first space using Unity assets to create cool warehouse gallery. Let's put this under education. And gallery. Done. There's an issue with the script. I didn't see it. I think I deleted all the scripts on the door. Mesh render box glider. Yeah, no, I deleted all the scripts. The reactor anyway. What were we doing? Yeah. Okay, so once you have your playground files, I'm going to delete those just to make sure that they are updated with the new Skybox. So let's do that. File, save, playground. Ah, the portal. Gotcha. Yes. That's not a script, that's a texture. That's why I was confused. Yeah, no, you're right. Let's just do that first. So the portal is there. F. Now I have to find the correct portal door. No, portal. That one. There we go. Save. Playground. Was there anything else I said that I was going to fix and haven't? I do recommend like always checking the playground first if everything works, because then after you get it to the playground, then you don't. It's really quite. It's another step you have to worry about, kind of thing. Yeah. So the door's good. I kind of want to make it brighter. So just quickly, this gets in a little really fine detail. So let's go 1 of 1, I think. Let's see if that makes it better. Or let's make the shadow a bit darker as well, actually. So let's that. Playground. Better, but yeah, that's because I clicked on the thing again. But the shadow isn't as obvious as I would like it to be, and that concrete's a bit too big. So let's tile that up a bit more. Let's go 20 and 0.2. Cool. And yeah, let's make 1 and 1. Real time. Okay. So 2 real-time lights isn't too bad. So 1 has shadow and 1 does not. So you can see that. I did it again. Because you can see that faint. You can see it very faintly. I think I want it brighter, to be honest. I like the shadow effect. So let's put them both to 1, and then we'll call it done. And just because I kind of have an idea that that's going to be fine, I'm just going to drag that into our playable files. Upload. 50 canvases. That's a lot. I would probably put 50 as a maximum. A lot of people do tend to use just online images, and they don't check the size of the image, which means if you have like a rather large image on the asset, it will take a lot of time to load up at the start of the thing, and the experience is not as smooth. So to be honest, 50 is probably too high. So I might kind of put that down to 3 on each wall. But if I was going to do this, you could do it, but each image would have to be like less than probably 1000 by 1000, 2000 at 2000 at most. Animated GIFs probably wouldn't recommended, just because they're so big and things like that. So we definitely have our space. I think it looks pretty good. But 50, like a gallery space of 50 assets is pretty big. Maybe a bit too big. So we've got that. All right. Now, when you're looking at, and this is a good example of the name. So you go gallery wall, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So if that was unique canvas 1, unique canvas 2, not exactly the best user experience for that. Yeah, we'll leave it. I think we'll leave it, but yeah, with a warning. So we got that. All right, cool. So that's the space done. Let's get some sun. That's the space done. And yeah, making this all in Unity. I did cover light mapping, light probes, and reflection probes. But if this is your first space and that seems a bit much, that's fine, because this space currently doesn't use them. What light mapping does is it just allows you to create a more appealing light-based experience, but there's a whole process. And there are, of course, tutorials in our docs and in our YouTube channel that goes over it. So you could definitely use that with those resources. And they go into more detail of how to set it up correctly and things like that. So once you get comfortable with this experience, e.g. not lighting, just a couple of light directional lights, then you can start looking at light mapping, light probes, and reflection probes as well. You don't need them, but they do make nice spaces. That said, I think this is kind of done. Where do we get a good shot? Where can we get a good shot from this? So let's hide this one. So V goes first person. Maybe that looks good. Then U to hide, looks X for that. U to hide the UI, and then F11. Let's get that sort of good shot there. Wait for that. There we go. And then Alt, print screen. Done. Cool. So we covered a lot of stuff. Moody has a lot of very interesting points in regards to optimizing, creating assets, things like that. So appreciate that put in. But once again, if this is your first time in Unity, some of those things might be a little bit more advanced than what you're looking at. So yeah, pick your poison, choose your path. There are many different ways to do it. And just finding something that you're comfortable with is kind of the goal for the first, like, let's say 3 spaces. That allows you to sort of get comfortable with the tools, get comfortable with the creation process, and then, yeah, taking it to the next step, like learning the next skill, be it making assets in Blender, making light maps and doing lighting better, all those sorts of things. There are thousands of different things you can make spaces look good, but to be honest, when you're making a space, you don't actually need that much information to do it well enough. It's just getting good reference, having an idea in mind, and then how to create those tools. If it's a simple space like this one, you can just do it in Unity. But as noted, I'd probably recommend using Blender to make your base assets a little bit better. So instead of having one material for each wall, so the back wall and the side walls are two different materials, I would create the whole wall as one object and unwrap it correctly so you can only use that one material or two materials. So that's pretty important. When it comes to optimizing a space, material count is important. This has like 6, I think, which is fine. But if you're looking at a very complicated space, you need to figure out ways to get those material counts down. So using trim sheets, which is another technique, which I find really fun. Baking, baking textures together into one sort of approach. Once again, many different ways to create different assets, but it's, yeah, making sure that you take all of this on with your skill set in mind is very important. So keeping to your level and not doing anything until you need it. And then you can look into those tools. The docs that we have are pretty thorough at this point. So let's go, where's that? How it works, I think. Yeah. So we have all these things, building spaces, we've got all that. A lot of the things that we looked at today would all be in create your space. Like this is all you need to make a good space. Improving your space, this is when you start wanting to make it better or interactive. Light maps, reflection probes are all in here. And then, of course, optimize your space allows you to make more complicated spaces use less resources. But once again, if you're starting, I wouldn't even worry about optimize your space or improve your space. I would just stick to create your space. Go away. There we go. So these here. And that's kind of what we did today. So yeah. Thanks for joining. Thanks for talking. Thanks for chatting. And yeah, next week I think we'll look into sort of building your second space. So using Blender to make assets. We might even make this space again with those in mind, if that makes sense. So we can sort of show different approaches to make the same space in different methods and see the benefits of some of those sort of things. So that might be a fun approach to next week's workshop. So I might do that. All right, we'll wrap it up there. Thanks for joining and have a good day. So much so that I'll put it in text. There we go. All right, done and done. Catch you later.